Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening to everybody. I am saying this way of greeting because we have people from different countries all over the world. So I really would like to thank you all for joining and for being connecting today with us. And well, I think that we could wait a couple of minutes before starting because it's just like the hour in which we set. Maybe we could take a couple of minutes and then we are going to be starting. Thank you all for being punctual today. Okay, then I am seeing more than 50 people connected, so that's great. And again, thank you all for joining today with us. And well, I will start this webinar series today with a brief introduction, and then I will let you everybody with even on. So let me share my screen with you so I could start with this webinar. So I am giving here a brief introduction to this webinar series that are being developed by the Phytosanitary Irradiation platform, the PsIP. And well, first of all, I will introduce myself for the people that don't know me. My name is Ariadne Vargas Rivadeneira. I am the PsIP lead right now for the IAs. And well, today for me it's a pleasure to be presenting this first webinar series that has been thinking with the main goal for increase the education and to strengthen the education between the whole community when talking about phytosanitary irradiation. That's why we call this webinar series, as you are seeing in my screen, Phytosanitary Irradiation, Understanding and Unlocking the Potential. Well, today I will take just from some minutes from this webinar to give you a brief introduction about how the PsIP was born. So you know that it's not a secret that the commercial trade of fruits and fresh products is just like something that is absolutely important for the economy of different countries all over the world. And most of the countries that have that are importers, of course, they have their phytosanitary measurements for preventing the entrance of different pests that could be quarantined or forbidden pests in their country. So for that, you know that there are a lot of different treatments for phytosanitary measurements, like chemical fumigation and all of those treatments. And irradiation is one of them. You know that the irradiation had been accepted by the FAO, by the World Health Organization, by the Codex Alimentarius as a safe measurement. So as in all the different treatments, we have challenges. That challenges could become opportunities. In this case, some challenges are the exchange and the cooperation between different stakeholders in the industry, then the need for increased resources, thinking about information, regulation, R&D, and then the education and awareness of the technology. That's why for taking these challenges into opportunities, the IIA created in 2023, well, this year, the Phytosanitary Irradiation Platform, the PsIP, that it's a group for different professionals in the area that wants to create a structured dialogue and discussion opportunities by developing different events, different activities that could help to the development of the phytosanitary irradiation applications. And then doing those kind of things, so we want to try to be the voice of the phytosanitary irradiation community. And as I also mentioned, it's an important part to promote and to strengthen education and awareness of the technology in our community. That's why we are publishing this first, one of these first activities, that is this webinar series, thinking about strengthening the education. This first webinar series will include 3 webinars. The first one, today's webinar, will be presented by Yvonne, so thank you to Eve. The second one is going to be presented by Sally Ormiston from the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries and Forestry of Australia. And the third webinar is going to be presented by Laura Jeffers from the USDA APHIS in the US. So as you might see, we are going to be having just like a deep, a general overview about what is phytosanitary irradiation, what it's used for. We are going to be discussing this kind of things with Eve today. And then the second, the third webinar are going to be most related with regulation in the area. So that's, I think that it's something quite nice, or a good introduction to be showing for us. And well, for not taking too much minutes, I'm going to introduce you to Eve on. Maybe, well, I am pretty sure that most of you already know Eve. Eve, for making this a little bit brief, Eve right now is a IAA's board member. We have him as a quite and a very experienced person in our area. He has been an expert in the International Atomic Energy Agency. And well, today I want to highlight that Eve was the founder of the PsIP. So he is going to be presenting something absolutely interesting for all of us. So, well, I will let you all of you with Eve. So I could ask Eve to share his screen and to start with his presentation.
Thank you, Ariane. So I
You're
hope
welcome.
that the gods of technology are with us today, and that my presentation is going to appear soon. All right. How about that? Yeah. Okay, hello everyone. There is a number of friends in the audience and new people, which is also very nice. And thanks especially to those who get up in the middle of the night to hear this presentation. In the next 20 slides or so, I'm going to try to give you a global overview of phytosanitary irradiation in terms that are as practical as possible. And then think a bit about the different challenges that the technology is facing and the opportunities that we also have. I see my screen my presentation disappeared.
Yes,
Is that
it
so?
disappeared.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to load it again. Sorry about that. All right. I see it.
Not yet.
Do others see it?
No, we cannot see it. If you want, I can share your slides for you.
Okay.
Let me share.
Just tell me, let's see. I have a little button telling me, suggesting to synchronize, whatever that means. So please let me know if you see it or not. No.
Okay. No, not yet.
Okay.
If you want, I can share them with you for you.
I've never been lucky with Teams. Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry. Let me share them. And when you want me to change the slide, just tell me.
I will. So let's go to the first slide.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, so the second slide.
Okay.
So I think to put things into context, we cannot overstate the huge economic impact of invasive insects. Things are not getting better with an expanding international trade, where a lot of agricultural products travel around the world, sometimes in the suitcase of in the suitcases of people. but mostly in ships and planes. And there is also a very negative effect of the climate change that we are witnessing. What is the cost of invading pests? Well, it's very difficult to say, but some researchers tried to put a figure on this, and they came with a value of about 70 billion US dollars per year globally. That includes the cost on health, for some pests that are also like the tsetse fly, etc., which have an health impact. But we know well that the damage in agriculture is considerable. So I would say that globally, the phytosanitary protection, the biosecurity is fairly good, but it's getting more and more difficult to oppose a barrier, an efficient barrier to invasive pests. And so we do need more and better phytosanitary measures. What we have is not too bad, but new methods are definitely welcome. Next slide, Ariane. So let's start with the definition of a phytosanitary measure. All terms related to phytosanitary are found in the standard of the international standard for phytosanitary measures number 5. And you will see that a phytosanitary measure is any legislation, regulation, or official procedure aiming at preventing the introduction or the spread of quarantine pests. So a quarantine pest is a pest that can cause economic damage that is not present in a given area, or that has a very limited presence, and this area is controlled so as the pest will not invade it. And there are non-quarantine pests. The non-quarantine pests, as the name says, are these insects that are not quarantine pests. What are the main methods that are being used currently? Well, as post-harvest treatment, and of course, I should have said that in the beginning, we're talking post-harvest treatment, and there is also, of course, a number of pre-harvest treatments. So among the post-harvest treatments, methyl bromide fumigation is still very widely used. Very large volumes of products are treated by methyl bromide as a phytosanitary measure. A cold treatment, so that's a low temperature, not too far from zero, for extended period of time. Hot water dipping, by which the fruit will stay for certain amount of time in water at, say, 40, 45 degrees, which of course is not too good for the fruit, because for a while you cook the fruit. And vapor heat treatment, that is, for example, largely used for produce exported to Japan, and there this also it's a process where that will in part be detrimental to the quality of the fruit, but which is effective against the pests that are targeted. Next. In a nutshell, I'm going to try to give you the short history of phytosanitary irradiation. First publication is in the 1930s. A Japanese scientist suggests the use of X-ray to protect to treat the fruit that are exported from Taiwan, but there is no practical application. Of course, the machines are not available. And from there, as you see this caterpillar progressing there, the progress has been rather slow. We could consider that the cradle of phytosanitary irradiation is really Hawaii. Uh, in Hawaii, a pilot scale irradiator was built in 1967. Uh, it was under the USDA, and IAEA really accompanied the development of irradiation and promoted this application from a very early stage. 1980 should have been a major turning point for applications of food irradiation. It's when different scientists gathered by the World Health Organization, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the IAEA declared that irradiation of food poses no toxicological, microbiological, or nutritional problem. And number of people did believe at the time that the day of irradiated food had come. Well, we saw that it really did not happen, and we will come back on on all the obstacles that food irradiation has encountered. Some positive development, though. The USDA permits irradiation of fresh fruit and vegetable, setting a maximum dose of 1 kilogram. We have USDA. So FDA takes care, let's say, of the toxicological aspect, and USDA will be more into the practical aspects, entomology, etc. And so the USDA established regulation for imported fruit and vegetable, and this was really a major happening. The year after is the International Plant Protection Commission that publishes the standard on irradiation of fresh fruit and vegetable for a phytosanitary purpose. And in 2004, we have the first bilateral agreement for irradiated produce between Australia and New Zealand, which allowed the Australian mangoes to be consumed by people in New Zealand. Click. So it's around 2005 really that the international trade of irradiation produce starts. Before that, we have a number of shipments taking place between Hawaii in particular for the continental US. So Hawaii is part of the US though. Now, what is it that makes food phytosanitary irradiation unique among other phytosanitary treatments? Click. It's a quick and effective process. It takes just a few minutes to apply the process because the doses are quite low, or are by regulation below 1 kilogram, and the minimum dose is generally around 150 to 200 grays. So whichever the technology, it does not really make a difference in processing time. Let's say it's quick. It's non-chemical, of course. There are no residues and no temperature change. So a consequence of this is that the effect on the product is minimal, both in terms of sensory quality or nutritional quality. Of course, like with any other process, there are different responses to irradiation depending on the fruit, the type of fruit you're talking of. We know that even with refrigeration, well, bananas and apples do not respond in the same way to a storage as plus 4 degrees Celsius. So it's the same with irradiation. Fruit and vegetables have responses that can differ. So this has to do with a lot of parameters, actually, what happened before irradiation and what happens after irradiation, the maturity at the time. I'm saying this now, and I hope I will not forget to repeat it at least once. You know, in the whole chain of producing a good fruit, a good vegetable with top qualities, uh, and with irradiation as a part of the process. Irradiation is actually a very small part. It's maybe the easiest part. It's all about delivering a dose, and those who have an irradiation facility can do that very well. But the rest is, there is a lot of things that need to be controlled again before and after the process. So irradiation again is a very, very small part of the whole thing to be successful, to export fruit or vegetables that have been irradiated. Click. Now, something that is there absolutely unique with phytosanitary irradiation is the fact that the measure of efficacy is not the mortality of the insects. This is very new among phytosanitary treatments, and I would say it's even very disturbing for those who had a whole career, you know, with methyl bromide, VHT, etc., because it's not something they are used to. It's not something that they are comfortable with. So I think we'll come back to it. It's one of the challenges of irradiation. It's a shift in paradigm, really, among phytosanitary treatment, and we really need to educate the people from the plant protection organization and get familiar with the idea. The result of irradiation that is being thought is generally the prevention of further development, going from one stage of development to the next one, or have adults that will produce eggs that are not fertile, so the ability to reproduce. So these are very different from other treatments where you kill the bug or you do not kill the bug. And though one dimension that is ignored is that how long does it take to kill the bugs? Huh? And actually, the conventional treatments do fail once in a while, in spite of the long experience that we have with them. Now we have 20 years of experience, and there is no negative report with phytosanitary irradiation. So it's a reliable method, and again, experience has proved it. Another unique feature of irradiation is the possibility to use generic dose, which is a dose that is unique, a minimum dose to obtain the desired effect that will control a group of pests, for example, a family, or maybe even an order. So we don't have this case yet, but let's say a family. Instead of doing the research and the validation and the protocol for each species, you can have one dose that covers all the species within the genus or the family. And this is quite nice. And this also applies to any host product. it's not doses that are specific to a certain type of products, as is the case with other phytosanitary methods. So these generic doses are, I think, a great concept to achieve quicker progress with the use of phytosanitary irradiation. Next, and okay, this I put it last always. In some cases, irradiation as a one result, um, the extension of shelf life. It does not happen with everything, but it does happen with a lot of species. We can mango, papaya, lychees would be in this group. There are others also, but again, it's very dependent on the variety, the condition, the maturity, etc., etc. So there is, in the past, 30, 40 years ago, that was really the buzzword, shelf life extension. Strawberries that would keep forever in your refrigerator. No, it's not like this, but I would say as a side effect of irradiation, you can have an extension of shelf life, and of course, it's a very desirable effect for for the traders, or the exporters, and the importers. Now, I was talking about the uniqueness of irradiation that brings discomfort, and it's always useful to explain what is the confidence in the efficacy of phytosanitary irradiation based on. First, good quality research that will determine the minimum dose for the desired effect. And again, the desired effect is not killing, is, for example, blocking at a certain stage of development. And so with with trials on a very large number of insects to validate, to establish the minimum dose that will be used. And this will be made official in a treatment protocol that will be published by the ISPM. We will come back to this. The second important thing is confidence that that minimum dose will indeed be applied to the product, to any part of the product. So that will be based on the confidence that you have in the facility, in the organization irradiating the product. And that is why these irradiation facilities will be audited by the NPPO of the country or the importing country, or even in one case, the APHIS, US APHIS, requires in most countries that inspectors be present at the time of irradiation, which adds to the cost, of course, of the process, and hopefully in the future we will get away from this. And the third part, equally important, the three parts are equally important, safeguarding, make sure that the product will not be reinfested once it has been treated by irradiation. So this is based on precautions that are taken in the irradiation facilities, in the storage conditions, in the wrapping of the products, etc., etc. And again, I will repeat that the experience has shown that phytosanitary irradiation is a reliable process. But this approach is new again, and it's actually quite similar to the HACCP that is known in the food industry. So it's not a control at the end. Did we kill the bugs or did we have the effect or not? It's based on a very large number of control points and control of the critical points. Next. So these are the two standards. The first one is the international standard that is specific to irradiation as a phytosanitary measure. It was first published in 2003, I believe, and it was just revised. Click. So it is available online in a number of languages. I recommend that you download it. The other standard is actually not specific to irradiation, but it's for all the phytosanitary treatments, yeah? And it has a number of annexes. I don't know, I don't remember because it changes all the time, where we have passed 50 annexes now, and I would say that a good half is about irradiation treatment. Next, Ariane. And in the next slide, this is the list of the phytosanitary treatments. So those annexes, among all the annexes that deal with irradiation. You can see that the first ones, for example, were species by species. You have for Anastropha, for the genus Anastropha, you have Ludens and Obliqa, and Bactrocera, so also a tephritid. So each had its treatment, and this is, of course, extremely cumbersome. So now there is really a trend toward generic dose. The first one that appears is the one for the fruit flies of the tephritid family in 2009. And a second, Cydia pomonella, is an example of a tortricid. And you see that in 2020, we also had an annex regarding sort of the generic dose for tortricid of the order Lepidoptera. And I think in the not too far future, we will probably have one for the mealybugs, I would say, because there is research going on for other types of mealybugs than those listed in the annexes here. Next, Ariane. This is an attempt to give you a global view of the trade in irradiated products. So as you see, a number of arrows converge toward the USA, because indeed the US are the first importer of irradiated produce. But you would have only see a few arrows and all going to the USA 10 years ago. Now there is a bit more diversity. There are arrows in other directions. You see, for example, that there is within Southeast and within Asia, let's say Australasia, there is trade that developed, and also very interestingly, within Australia, different parts of Australia have very different climate. Some region of southern Australia, New South Wales, etc., do not have fruit flies, while the Queensland upper north have fruit flies. So there are quarantine treatments needed to go from one region of the country to the other one. Also, trade taking place now between the Caribbean and the Peru. This is relatively new. Some areas are out of this. For example, Africa, it's limited to small volumes from South Africa, and Europe is out of it. We'll come back on this. So At the moment, there are about a dozen countries involved in the international trade of irradiated fruit and vegetables. Next slide, please. Number one exporter, largest exporter, is by far Mexico. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the figures for 2022. From what I was told, it has grown very much over 2021 and last year, so it was probably near somewhere around 40,000 tons. But you see that the growth has been remarkable. Of course, they have a neighbor that is a big buyer and premium market for exotic fruit. So there is quite a flow of irradiated produce from Mexico to the US, and that accounts probably for 60% of the global trade. Until very recently, the major product was guava, by far. And recently we have seen other products being traded, and among them mango is the one that has grown the most. And recently products such as, well, citrus have also come into the picture. Next, Ariane. Australia. Australia now exports 9,000, maybe 9,000 tons of product of all kinds, quite a variety of products. And as I mentioned already, it's not only for export, though it's mostly for export, but to a number of different destinations, but it's also for domestic trade. Next, Ariane. This is an attempt by compiling different sources to have a graph showing the growth of phytosanitary irradiation. I wrote estimates. It should not be very far from the truth, really, and I'm rather confident in my estimates because some are quite open about the volumes that are being traded. Also, it's something that is compulsory and it's controlled, so there are official national statistics on this. But it's more and more difficult to get. So I don't know if we will have this. We will be able to follow up on these numbers in the coming years. Well, what you see anyway is a steady growth, some slowdown during the COVID episode, and it has picked up very much. Next, Ariane. What are the main products being irradiated? Mangoes, certainly. Comes from Mexico, from Australia, from India, from Pakistan. All these are countries exporting irradiated mangoes. Papaya historically was one of the first from Hawaii to the continental US, and it's a product that lends itself very well to irradiation. I already mentioned guava from Mexico, dragon fruit, especially from Vietnam, exported to the US, now to Australia also, and also some varieties of dragon fruit from Mexico to the US, and also table grapes from Australia being exported, for example, to Vietnam. What we see recently also are growing volumes of citrus. Citrus was considered impossible to irradiate. Well, the recent development showed that it's not the case. Among the vegetables, historically, there was the purple sweet potato from Hawaii, but this has been extended to other products, in particular peppers produced in Australia or in Mexico. Next, Ariane. So we have about 65,000 tons of irradiated fresh produce traded around the world in 2022. Is it a success? So there are two ways to look at it. Really, yes, it's a success because we started from nearly nothing 20 years ago. Not nothing, but not much. It was, as I said, very limited volumes from Hawaii to the US. It's a success because it keeps growing. It keeps growing at a very steady rate, more than 10%, sometimes more than 20% year on year. So this is very encouraging. And for those who devoted a lot of efforts in their careers to the cause of food irradiation, like in the audience, my friends Pierre Dardenne, Peter Roberts, and Setsuko, it's a successful application of food irradiation. And let's be honest, there hasn't been that many. So we can be very satisfied with that. Is it a success? Well, not that much because now these volumes is still very, very small. It's really only a fraction, a small fraction of the volumes that are being exported. So it could be a lot more. Now we realize that it's still difficult to discuss phytosanitary irradiation with most NPPOs. Sorry for those who don't understand NPPOs, National Plant Protection Organization, because it's something new. As I said, some are not comfortable with it due to the fact that it doesn't, the purpose is not to kill the bugs. So there is a lot of education needed in this direction. And what we have seen is that any progress requires a lot of efforts. So I must say I'm impressed by all the energy that companies like Steritech in Australia in particular are devoting to the progress of food irradiation in order to sign protocols with countries in Asia, for example. It's not an easy job, and any small victory cost a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of tenacity. Next, Ariane, please. So yes, food irradiation is facing a number of challenges. And these challenges actually, I would say, are the challenges of food irradiation. Next, Ariane. First and foremost is that food irradiation is regulated as a food additive, and this is the original sin, really, an aberration that dates back to 1958 in the US, considering that irradiation was an additive. Now, to most people, it does not seem, it's your common sense should tell you that no, indeed, it's not an additive. But you have to place things back in the context of 1958. That's the time where Rachel Carson publishes her book Silent Springs, talking about pesticides, etc. And there was a big scare about anything that could have a detrimental effect that would be introduced in the food. As a consequence of this, irradiation of a particular type of food is prohibited unless it has been expressly permitted, like is the case with any food additive. You need to mention it on the label. So mention of irradiation is mandatory just as a food additive. and you have a maximum dose, just like with a food additive. And really physical processes that have, say, a minimum energy quantity stated in the regulation, I think there is none except irradiation. Next, Ariane. Now, the major product in our day and age is that irradiated produce cannot be, as I would consider it, called organic. And this is a problem because organic until recently, and things, I don't know in the rest of the world, but in Europe things are changing. Organic, everything had to be organic. So indeed, it's in the logic. If food irradiation is an additive, indeed, a product that has been irradiated cannot be called organic. So an irradiation is specifically mentioned, for example, in the USDA regulation, specifically excluded from the product that can be called organic. You can look, for example, at this link of the Environmental Protection Agency. Next, Ariane. And this brings two questions, showing that this is all crazy, really. Because you come to the question, well, is a photon or an electron a chemical? This is a legitimate question. And, even organic products are inspected in ports, etc. And one popular inspection method is irradiation. Of course, irradiation at very low doses, X-ray through containers, it's low doses, but phytosanitary irradiation is also very low doses. And there is not such a distance between the doses used for inspection and the doses used for irradiation. So maybe inspection by irradiation of organic products should not be allowed. They should not be called organic anymore if they have been inspected. Okay, this, food for thoughts. Next, Ariane. Now, problem we have is the attitude of some countries of region. Countries that are totally allergic to the idea of food irradiation. In this case, we have Japan instead of the efforts of my friend Setsuko. We have South Korea who changed a bit attitude, and the whole European Union also changed attitude because in the 90s, before there was a new directive on food irradiation, well, food irradiation was growing very much, but these are no entry zones for irradiated produce, and this is a problem because there are major markets. Now, the status of China is a little bit more complicated. I do not fully understand it. It's not prohibited, but doesn't seem to be allowed. So I don't know, maybe the near future will tell us what is the attitude of China. Next. I already mentioned this, so I will not go too much into it, just to say that it can be quite a headache to establish a protocol with the trade of irradiated produce is based on bilateral agreement, meaning that, okay, if you send me irradiated produce, you must allow me to send you irradiated produce also. And writing protocols, etc., can become a very complex and lengthy affair in some cases. So we need to make progress in this also. Next, Ariane. The number of facilities where produce can be irradiated is quite limited, actually. Most of these facilities will have to be approved some way or another by the authorities, especially of the importing countries. So how many are there in the world? Well, from my count here, we have 17. 17, let's say. It's probably somewhere between 15 and 20. Um, Most are in the Australasia region. Mhm. And most are based on the use of gamma irradiation. And actually, the largest volume of irradiated produce are gamma irradiated. So there are projects in several countries like Peru, for example. I think Mexico is project, and maybe other countries in the near future. And some of these facilities are not well suited at all for phytosanitary irradiation that requires very low doses, as I said. They have been designed to sterilize medical devices, and it's very awkward to treat product at very low dose. Are we in a chicken and egg situation? There would be more phytosanitary irradiation if there would be more facilities, or there would be more facilities if there was more phytosanitary irradiation. I do not think that at the moment the number of facilities is the main obstacle. Needs to be improved, certainly, but I think the first step is really to expand the use of phytosanitary irradiation. If there is a market, there will be people investing in a facility. But the facilities do not really create the market. Next slide. I need to speed up a bit. So the opportunities are as big as the challenges, really. Next, Ariane. Consumer acceptance. How many times did we hear this? Consumers do not want irradiated food. No, they do not want irradiated food, but they buy it. They buy it. Sure, as one of my friends said in an article, has been a reference since it's been published. There is now substantial evidence from practical market experience that while a fraction of the public will not buy irradiated food, a much larger fraction will. And this is very nicely put. So we are talking practical market experience. We're not talking about in a place like Germany or Sweden, to name a few European countries. What do you think of irradiation? This is not the right approach. Educating the customer, well, good luck. First of all, you need to convince the retailers. This is what is really important. We see that major retailers, big names, let's name one. Slips out of my mind. Walmart in the US, yeah, they do sell irradiated fruit, you see. And let them do. They sell better than, for example, scientists in nuclear research center. They are nice. They have a lot of goodwill. They are very positive. They do all they can to promote. But when they talk about fruit and vegetables that have been irradiated, they can't refrain from saying the wavelength of the energy of the photons, etc. And the consumers don't need that. So you need the right communication. And is the retailers who can do that well, or people in the business. It's important to talk about the product, not about the process. Really, irradiation is a very, very secondary fact, actually. in this whole story. Next slide, Ariane. Now, what is nice to see is the international cooperation that is taking place, and IAEA is playing a very positive role in all this. In the field of research, for example, there is a coordination research program going on with more than 15 countries, especially to establish new generic dose. The Technical Cooperation Department of the IAEA also has a new project to promote phytosanitary irradiation in Latin America and the Caribbean region. So this is all very positive, though I would say that the IAEA also often has a very technical, I would say, nuclear scientist approach to the promotion of irradiation. And I think it's important to have contributors who are really in the business of fruit trade, etc., more than in nuclear science. Next slide, Ariane. We need alternatives to methyl bromide. Methyl bromide is still lawfully used for large volumes of fresh produce. Example, grapes from Chile. These are very, very large volume going to the US in particular. They must be treated by methyl bromide. Methyl bromide has been banned in the European Union some years ago already, and really the pressure on this gas is really increasing. Let's remember that it's a ban on phantom, for example, or EDB, ethylene dibromide, that has really triggered the use of irradiation as a phytosanitary measures. So there are different solutions being looked into to replace methyl bromide. I think a lot of people are ready to consider anything as long as it's not irradiation, but we must convince them that irradiation is the best alternative because it does not have like some of the alternatives that they are looking into undesirable effects on product. Stories of acquired resistance, like even with phosphine, for example, or biosecurity risk that is considerably greater than with irradiation. Next slide, Ariane. What next? What next is my next slide, and what next is not for a man who just retired to say, but maybe just a few leads. So I think it's very important to develop new treatments for other bugs, more bugs, possibly generic doses that will have to be approved by IPPC, and the IPPC, this will happen only if we have good research quality, and I think considerable progress has been made in the approach used by the IAEA in particular. We need to publicize success stories, some that happened in Mexico, with Mexico or Australia. Good stories must be disseminated. Learn from successful communication experiences also. Communication with the authorities and PPOs, with the traders, and key point, with the retailers. Forget about consumer, please, it's mission impossible. We need to conquer new territories. Latin America, there is a huge potential there, as in Caribbean and Africa. But please, not the approach saying, oh, we're going to solve the problem of poverty in this country, because if we put an irradiator there, they will export huge quantities of fruit at a high price. This is the wrong approach. I must say that an approach that has been used over and over for decades. This does not happen. As I say, there is much more to phytosanitary irradiation than just putting an irradiator. A lot of things, you need a lot of things to be right before and after. And also look at the market. Recently I saw a product. We're going to export mangoes to the European Union with the help of phytosanitary irradiation. Excuse me, just a detail. It's not allowed in the European Union. You see, it's incredible. I mean that the people can get excited, with something that really just require a little bit of information. And the last thing I would say, I would like to say, is really the cooperation of all parties interested beyond the different views on technologies. I'm really tired to see all the energy that some talented people spend on bickering over technologies, insisting that one type of technology is better than the other. What a waste of time and of talent. So all of them really need to cooperate. There is a very large number of talented people in our community. And I think that in the future, the PsIP could really be the focal point of all this effort. And with the help of the IAEA, that is quite active, and some members across the world that have the experience, we could see further progress of phytosanitary irradiation. And that's all for today. I just conclude with the last slide, some example of communication in Australia, where things are, I find, very nicely said and done. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Yves, for your presentation. I am pretty sure that the people of the audience are really liked it. And now we can go directly to a question and answer session. And if you have questions, you can type your question in the question and answer section of the webinar. You are going to see your screen two little shapes with a question mark there. If you have some question or answer, you can put some questions, sorry, you can put there, so we could ask them to Yves. In the meantime, I received a question in advance that I could make it to you, Yves, please. So I have this question that I've received before. It says that success depends upon the customer experience being of a high quality product. Quality can easily be lost in inappropriate conditions pre and post irradiation. Is a best practice manual for individual produce types feasible? And the second question is, who is best placed to inform and achieve cooperation from growers, exporters, and importers?
Oh, it's a long question. But I think it reinforces the point that I made, that irradiation is a very small thing in the long chain of things that you need to get right for indeed having in the end a top quality product. Phytosanitary irradiation is not for rubbish. I mean, low grade products, etc. Don't bother irradiating them. They will not get better. And this is not the kind of, you're looking really at premium products for premium markets. Best practice manual or something equivalent, certainly. I think it would be very useful, because you see that two leading countries like Australia and the US, with very well-informed PPOs, do not have the same approach. And of course, there is national sovereignty everywhere. But I think that it would certainly be beneficial to write a best practice manual or something equivalent that would collect, so that people do not reinvent the wheel every time, and that would collect the positive experience in different parts of the world, and a mistake that would not be repeated. And so maybe it's something for the PsIP to consider. And I think with the different members that we have in this PsIP or in the International Irradiation Association, I think we could be in a position to produce this. And I forget the last, who would be in the best position, yeah, to coordinate the efforts. This
Exactly.
is growers, etc. I think in the audience there is Ben Riley of Steritech. He probably has an answer to this. Ben, if you're there, who is in the best position to do this?
Well, he also, Ben, already put an answer in the chat. He's saying that
he answers the
the
question, is
experts,
not asked. Yeah,
yeah, he put the experts, and these are the growers and retailers.
I would agree with that. Yeah, they can work very well together. They do it all the time. Yeah.
Great. Great. Thank you, Eve. Well, I have another question here in the chat that says, hello, why does irradiated fruit needs to show a logo when other methods don't require?
Why do they need to show a logo or a mention and not necessarily a logo? The logo is optional. Well, the further reason that I said, the regulations and food additive. Food additive must be mentioned. So irradiation must be mentioned. It's unfair. Please don't blame me. In 1958, I had not started with food irradiation yet, so I have nothing to do with this. Um, and and it would be, we know that changing this, it would need to go, for example, in the US, it would need to go through US Congress, etc. The task appears too immense. Will that change? I think the Codex Alimentarius, if it went a step further, could could um, could contribute to that. But yeah, it's unfair. We agree, it's unfair. But who said that the
Okay.
world, that life is fair? I see a question there. Confidence in efficacy. The measure of efficacy is not mortality. Indeed. Is this good or bad? Neither. It's neither good or bad. It's the way it is. It's new. Actually, you could kill the bugs. The dose would need to be higher. And if the dose is higher, you have a chance to exceed this maximum dose that was arbitrarily set because it was comfortable at the time in the 90s in the US, and that many countries followed. So you would exceed that dose to have mortality within a short time, comparable to methyl bromide, because methyl bromide does not kill instantly. And you would also have more detrimental effect on products, like changes in texture and color, more likely to happen as the dose increases. So it's neither good or bad. It's different. It's and I think it's very interesting, and maybe other treatments will come to something like this. So other treatments are being developed. For example, in the Netherlands, they are very active on controlled atmosphere and temperature combination as a phytosanitary treatment for bell peppers, for example, and tulip bulbs, of course, being in the Netherlands. So I think they will have an approach that is similar, actually.
Great. Thank you, Yves. I will pick two questions more because of the time, because we already exceed the time of the webinar, but I will pick this question. It says, are heat and or vapor treatments considered as additives like ionizing radiation as well? Do you think that a largely worldwide signed request or petition asking to better label ionizing radiation treatment could help change the current case and therefore help us take a step further towards adoption of such process?
Oh, we always come to this discussing labeling and consumer acceptance. It's amazing, yeah. So vapor heat treatment or the processes, no, they don't need to be labeled. Of course, I would say, of course not, and it's unfair. But like on most of our food products, fruit juice, do you know that it was pasteurized at high pressures? Or no, you don't know. You just look at the product. It looks good. It tastes good. It's affordable. You buy it, and let it be like that with irradiated food, please, and not torture ourselves too much with the mention, etc. Actually, experience shows that it's not. It's too often a blocking point. This is the reason not to go forward. And the great example is in the EU. The regulators have not got beyond this point. Well, consumers don't want irradiated food, and they will not buy it. They don't know anything about it. They don't know. It's not based on anything. Because again, practical experience shows people do buy irradiated food even when it's the irradiation is mentioned on the label. So it's really, if we keep talking about this and this only for the coming years, we're not going to make progress. And the progress is made with people like Steritech in Australia side, because it's a brilliant example, in other countries. It's you do not focus on this. There are so many other things that are more interesting and that will allow progress for you.
Okay, thank you, Yves. I have another question that says, how important are harmonized food standards, and what is the risk of or cost of incomparable standards?
Well, you're asking me, how do you harmonize food standards? And I'm sorry, I don't have yes, of course, it would be very important. Of course. How do you do it? Again, good luck. I think I will repeat that the Codex Alimentarius could help very much. It did not have the impact, and it did not really serve as the model that it is supposed to be in a large number of countries, except especially the most advanced countries. We always have, again, a question of sovereignty, and people just don't say, okay, Codex standard, okay, let's go for it. No, this doesn't happen. But it could be instrumental in developing an harmonized approach. But I think, again, that as it is now, it's pretty good and far better than most food irradiation regulations, national food irradiation regulations, but it's not complete yet. There are a few things that that need to be stated more clearly. I feel,
Okay, thank you, Yves. Well, I think that, I will pick only one question more due to the time. And if there are any more questions, you can send them and we can be answered you by email. So the last question that I have is, what's your opinion of the power to export irradiated food from Colombia, South America to the whole world?
Ariane, please answer, because you're much closer to Colombia than I am. I've never been to Colombia. My answer is I really don't know. I don't have a clue. But maybe Ariadne does. She attended an international meeting recently, and Colombia has been involved in this IA project. From what I heard from the first meeting, again, I have really big question marks on the approach that was taken before the workshop of a couple of weeks ago. Um, you have to be realistic again. I don't think that irradiation is going to be a miracle. It's just a tool. It's not going to change the physiognomy of the Colombian economy and agriculture. It's just a tool among others. And do not do not believe in miracles, please. Though
Yeah,
I know that
also,
Colombia is a very Catholic country, of course. Yeah.
yeah, I also could add to your answer if that it is only not the fact that we need to have the facility and everything is going to be done. We need to have a coordinated work between the regulators, retailers, the people that are doing the treatment, etc. So I think that it's important. Yeah, there is potential, but it needs to be done quite good work there. As one example is Australia, for example. Well, I have those questions, Eve, and well, I think that we have only one. I think that we could answer that one, and we are going to be done. It says that what determines the maximum allowable dose for phytosanitary radiation treatment?
What is the dose maximum?
Yeah, what determines the maximum allowable dose for
Ah,
phytosanitary radiation treatment?
what did the 1 kilogram dose? It was not a wet finger, but it was not too far from it. 1 kilogram would achieve most effects that were actually the U.S. regulation, FDA regulation, the first one, allowing irradiation of fruit, vegetables, etc. 1 kilogram is not only phytosanitary, but it was also for inhibiting sprouting and all the different applications of irradiation to food. So not only phytosanitary. 1 kilogram was a dose that could achieve most desired effects. And 10 kilograms a few years before had been accepted, considered as safe. So one was not a bad number, but it could have been 0.9, 1.1, that's just one, a round figure. And it doesn't make any sense, of course, But being a food additive, you need to state a limit, So it's too bad that it was not 1.5 or 2, Life would have been simpler. It would still have been ridiculous to state a maximum dose, but one is a bit just. But as we see, 65,000 tons a year, so it's manageable. But life would be easier if this upper limit did not exist, and there would not be any undesirable effect for the consumers.
Okay, thank you, Eve. Thanks a lot. And well, I think that
Thank
we are
you.
done with the questions. And well, thank you all for joining today with us. We already exceeded the limit and the time, and we are going to be uploading the recording of the webinar into the PsIP website. And also for those that are not PsIP members yet, we invite you to join PsIP. The membership is free, so you can only just click in the website, the PsIP website, join PsIP, and you could be part of the community just to be checking and receiving invitations for other events, webinars, and also to be reviewing information that are going to be developed and published there. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And please keep attentive. We are going to be giving 2 webinars more. the next with Sally Ormiston to discuss about regulatory issues about, well, from Australia. So keep attentive. We are going to be releasing the announcement soon. So please connect again here to continue learning about this topic. Thank you, everybody, and see you during the next webinar. Goodbye.